What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Talkin Football Podcast. This is episode 4. We are doing a slightly different video than what we normally do here. We're doing something a little bit more fantasy based, as you can tell by the title. This is 5 fantasy players that I'm avoiding, and I'm hoping that you avoid too. After I talk about that, make sure you like, subscribe, follow the socials. Those links will be in the description. And yeah, let's roll the intro and then get ready. All right, so we're going to just get right into it. I have the graphic set up right here, and we're going to basically go right off of that. So, 5 fantasy players to avoid this season, and my number 1 is Kyren Williams, running back from the Rams. So you might say, why would I want to avoid a guy who just had a career year last year? And he was phenomenal, don't get me wrong about that. And you see the reasons why. My number 1 reason why I'm personally staying away from Kyren Williams is Blake Corum. And I believe Corum was taken in the 3rd or 4th round, and he was phenomenal at Michigan. He was the Michigan Wolverines offense. I think that he's going to play a relatively large role in that offense with Stafford coming back healthy. I think that Corum's going to take away touches from Kyren Williams, and that's going to play a part on why I don't want to draft Kyren Williams this year. Now, I have seen things that said that Kyren Williams is more likely to be in the receiving game, but even with that, you still have guys. You have Nakua and you have Kupp and you have Tutu Atwell, who played a bigger role last year. These are players that are going to take touches away from Kyren Williams, and it's a relatively weapons wise, it's a relatively loaded offense with the Rams. So I don't know if I would be willing to go after a guy like Kyren Williams. I think I would rather stay away from him. His ADP, according to Fantasy Pros, is around 18. I've seen Yahoo has him, I think, at around 16. ESPN has him around that range as well. So I would keep an eye on him coming into the season. I feel like with guys like Nakua and Kupp coming back healthy and Stafford's coming back healthy, and they're probably going to want to run the ball more, and they're going to want to split carries between Kyren and Corum, I would stay away from Kyren Williams as a top running back. Player number 2 is Nico Collins. So my thing with Nico is this. I've always been a Nico Collins fan. I like the way he plays the game, but my problem is that, again, similar to Kyren Williams, it's a very loaded offense weapons-wise. They just added Diggs. They just added Mixon, as you can see here. Tank Dell's returning, and he was very good before he got hurt. And I feel like Nico Collins won't get enough touches for being drafted as high as Fantasy Pro says he will be, and that's at 23. That's the ADP. Now, keep in mind, I took these notes a couple weeks ago, so they may have changed, but that goes for all the players that I'm talking about here in this episode. So I would just keep that in mind. This may have changed. If it did, I doubt it changed much. So the addition of Diggs is obviously going to take away receiving snaps. And Diggs, as we know from every team he's played on, whether it's Minnesota or Buffalo, he has been very vocal about getting the ball. And when he doesn't get the ball, it's a big problem for the team that he's playing with, because he's always like, "Oh, I want the ball. Oh, I'm not getting the ball. I'm not valued here." And that's always a big problem, because that's the way he is. That's just the way he's always been, and there's nothing really to change that. Now, the thing is here with Nico Collins, he's obviously going to lose targets, and even if he still gets around, let's say, 7 targets a game, how many of them are going to be high probability scenarios for him to catch them? That's what I don't know. Again, the addition of Mixon, I would assume that Houston would want to maybe rely less on TJ Stroud, considering he's so young, and maybe use a guy like Joe Mixon, use Dameon Pierce, use those guys a little bit more. Devin Singletary was very good last year, but they didn't use him a lot because, you're not going to rely on Devin Singletary to carry a heavy workload, but Joe Mixon is a guy who can. And also Dameon Pierce, even though he didn't really do anything last year, he's still there. You have guys like Dalton Schultz that played well last year. So I think Nico Collins gets a little lost, even though he got paid big bucks. I think he got 3 for 75 in this offseason, which hey, I think he's worth it. I think he's definitely played well. I just don't know if as a fantasy player, I don't know if I would draft Nico Collins where he currently is projected at. I think there's other players that you can probably get, like Marvin Harrison, like you get guys like Mike Evans, um, DK Metcalf around this range that I would rather go for than Nico Collins, just because I don't think he's going to get a big workload. Number 3 is Anthony Richardson, and this may be a surprise to some people. Now, I can understand why you'd be like, well, what's the point of not drafting Anthony Richardson? And I'll tell you why. My biggest reason is the most obvious one. It's what scouts had concerns about when he first came out of college, and it's the injury concerns, and that was proven true last season when he was out for almost the entire year. When he got hurt in like week 5 or 6. So look, I like Anthony Richardson. I think he's a great player. There's nothing doubting that. I just want, if I'm playing fantasy, I want a QB that's going to play for almost all of his games, if not all of them. And he's not totally proven. He had a couple of good games last year. I remember for the OGs that watched the live streams before the 1 o'clock games on Sunday, I do bold takes, and I said that Anthony Richardson was going to get 3 rushing touchdowns, and he got 2. And then I believe he was very close to getting the 3rd, and then he got hurt, and I was very annoyed because I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so close to getting this right." And I'm just saying I've gotten a lot of things right. I'm just saying I have. I said Houston was going to go 10-7 last year, so I'm not like speaking like just out of nowhere. I have a little bit of credibility just to put that out there. But anyways, back to what I'm saying. I don't think that Richardson's the best option here. I don't mind him. If I had to take a QB and he was the best one left, I would probably take him. But I don't know if I would go and draft a guy like Richardson, where he's currently being projected at 49 per Fantasy Pros. I think I'd rather get a guy like Hurts, guy like Mahomes, Lamar, or wait. Now, guys like Jordan Love are going to be taken later than Richardson. Guys like CJ Stroud are probably going to be taken around the same spot. I've done a couple mock drafts so far, and based on what I've seen, guys like Herbert, Rodgers, like those guys are available in later rounds. Tua, I would rather wait to get one of those QBs than reach on a QB like this who could get hurt. Even though he provides big points early, I think I would rather hold back on that before going after another, or before I'd rather go after a different QB than go after Anthony Richardson, if that makes sense. So yeah, again, you can disagree with me, and that's what we want. Comment what you think. Are you going to take Richardson? I'm just saying where I am. I don't really want a guy like Anthony Richardson on my team. Next up, number 4, we have Brandon Ayuk, who just requested a trade yesterday from the Niners. So this, and again, I made this graphic before we requested the trade. So here's the deal with Brandon Ayuk. These are a little iffy. The first 2 reasons are a little iffy. The contract disputes and the freshness, that's basically the same reason. Here's the reason with that. It's a different sport, and I get it. But for baseball fans, and you guys know what I'm talking about, the players that signed later, like Jordan Montgomery, when he signed with the D-backs, who else signed late? Blake Snell, when he signed with the Giants. Those are guys that signed significantly later than the rest of the competition. Cody Bellinger even signed later with the Cubs. Bellinger isn't struggling as much, but he's not playing like he was last season. I feel like the first 2, Snell and Montgomery, and for those of you who are not baseball fans, they're both pitchers. They've been terrible. They were phenomenal last year. Snell won the NL Cy Young, and Montgomery was very good with the Rangers. Montgomery has been horrifically bad. He's been booed off of many starts, and Blake Snell has been also bad, but he just has 7. He just pitched well in his last game, but as a season whole, he hasn't been great. He's been hurt a lot too. That's kind of my reasoning with Brandon Ayuk. If he is holding out this late and he's had no outside connection with the team, based on what I know, other than talking with Jaden Daniels, who is with the Commanders, I would hold off on a guy like him. And another obvious one is he's not guaranteed touches. You have McCaffrey, you have Debo. Who I think Debo's gonna have a big year, but we'll talk about that later. CMC, Debo, Kittle. I still think Elijah Mitchell is getting some touches, and Juwan Jennings. So I love Juwan Jennings. That's a side note. I think he's a great player. I think Juwan Jennings really knows what he's doing. He was really great in the Super Bowl. I've always liked him. Side note, coming back to this, I would stay away from Ayuk just because of being of freshness. I don't think that he's going to be ramped up in time. Maybe he is. Maybe he's not. I don't really know that, to say the least. But we're in the middle of July, and he hasn't signed a contract, and he's been holding out. I would be wary of that, and I think that attitude is not going to help. And I still think that this goes if he gets traded. If he gets traded, it would probably be to Washington because he would force a trade there, or Pittsburgh. I've heard could be interested there too. So if he goes to Pittsburgh or Washington, he's obviously the number one option. But I don't know if he's necessarily the right. I still wouldn't necessarily pick him because those are not very dangerous offenses. Now, Washington's more dangerous than Pittsburgh. Like, that's goes without saying. Washington, you have Terry McLaurin, then you have to worry about. You have Jahan Dotson, right? I don't know why I'm blanking on his name. You have Jahan Dotson. You have to worry about. You have they just signed Eckler. You have Brian Robinson. You have to worry about. So they have a lot. They have a lot of players there that want touches. So I think that guaranteed touches would still go there. With the Steelers, though, not as much. Najee's there. He's kind of regressed a little bit, but he's still consistently putting up numbers. They got rid of Deontay Johnson. I mean, they still have George Pickens, but I don't know if and he would obviously become the number one threat on those teams, and I don't know if he would be prioritized because teams would be focused on him. And especially, again, you can see here, you see what I'm highlighting, that 29, that ADP. I've even seen drafts where he's gone higher, like significantly higher than the top 20. I would stay away from Brandon Ayuk. That's just me. I would personally go after guys like Debo. I'd go after guys like Kittle, Jennings, and obviously CMC, but he's not going to be there unless you have the number one pick. Or number two, if you have a Cowboys fan going number one. Number 5 is Keenan Allen. Now, I have limited touches with a question mark. I don't know what role he's going to play. Now, this may change after the preseason. Is he going to be the safety valve for a guy like Caleb Williams? Is he going to be there consistently? How is he going to transition from being in warm weather to going to cold weather? How is that transition going to be? Because he played in LA, even though he played indoors, he still played in LA for his entire career, and now he's going to Chicago, which is outdoors and a significantly different. The media is different there because the Chargers don't have a ton of fans, and also the atmosphere is a lot different. The Bears, they want to win. They've made that very clear with their offseason moves. The media there is brutal. It's a big market. How is he going to transition through that? And also age and regression. I don't know if he's going to have enough left in the tank. Keep in mind, Chicago is a team, receiver-wise, they have a loaded room. They have Rome and they have DJ Moore. DJ Moore is phenomenal last year, and Rome, I think and Rome's already connected with Caleb. I don't know if Keenan has or not. So I would stay away from a guy like Keenan Allen. His ADP isn't that bad at 55. I don't think it's that bad to take a flyer on him if there's not a lot of receivers left and you need a receiver, depending on how your draft has gone. But I would stay away from Keenan Allen. I think there's better options later than going early with a guy like Keenan Allen. So yeah, those are the 5 players that I would personally stay away from. I think And again, I might be wrong. You guys do what you want to do. I'm just saying this is my personal advice to you guys. Now, for me, my draft isn't for a while, but I still want to get this content out because the off season's been so dry. Speaking of content, if you want a specific video, let me know in the comments. I'm always free to take ideas from you guys. I always want to give you what you want. All right, that's how we're gonna end the episode. That's how we're gonna end episode 4. I hope you guys enjoyed it. My next episode will probably be on Sunday, but you can check that out on the Talkin Football Pod IG, which I will put in the description. So you can follow. I'm gonna post a schedule every Sunday, so you guys know what I'm posting. And yeah, that's that. Hope you guys enjoy your day, and yeah, I'll see you next time.